It is now my pleasure to introduce our commencement speaker, Dr. Shyam Sundar. Dr. Sundar is a distinguished professor and founder of the Media Effects Research Laboratory at Penn State's College of Communications. His research investigates social and psychological effects of technological elements unique to online communication, ranging from websites to newer social media. Dr. Sundar was among the first to publish refereed research on the effects of digital media interfaces in leading communication journals, and has been identified as the most published author of internet-related research in the field during the medium's first decade. His research is supported by the National Science Foundation, Korea Science and Engineering Foundation, MacArthur Foundation, and Lockheed Martin Information Systems and Global Services, among others. A frequently cited source on technology, Dr. Sundar has testified before the U.S. Congress as an expert witness and delivered talks at universities in several countries. He is the editor of the first ever handbook on the psychology of communication technology, and he is editor-in-chief of the Journal of Computer-Mediated Communication. Dr. Sundar earned his bachelor's degree at Bangalore University, his master's degree at the University of Alabama, and his PhD at Stanford University. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Shyam Sundar.
Thank you, President Barron, for the introduction. It is indeed my honor to serve as commencement speaker on this day of celebration. Good afternoon. I'd like to begin by congratulating all the students who are graduating today, and by extension, all your loved ones who supported you through your graduate work, and most especially your parents who paid for your education, at least some part of it. Speaking of which, in case you haven't heard, I have news for you. Starting this year, in fact this semester, and this graduation ceremony, we will be issuing a check in the sum of $10,000 to each and every student who successfully graduates from one of our many graduate programs. This is a reward for graduating on time, for completing all your graduation requirements, and an incentive for future students to graduate on time. So while all you students here will be receiving your diplomas in the ceremony today, your parents will be receiving a check for $10,000 in the mail. And I have more good news for you, one that will be seen as a Christmas miracle by the entire Penn State community. In a stunning development, the College Football Playoff Committee announced today that it has decided to allow 8 teams instead of only 4 to compete in the college playoffs. In addition to Peach Bowl and Fiesta Bowl, they will count Rose Bowl and Sugar Bowl as part of the playoffs, essentially making these 4 bowl games the quarterfinals for the title game. This means Penn State has a real shot at the national title of being the college football champions of the year. I see you all cheering, and I see several of you reaching out your smartphones under your gowns. But before you start broadcasting these 2 pieces of news on social media, let me hasten to declare that both of them are false. These are what we in the media field call fake news. You are all about to be taken in by these 2 stories, even though they seem too good to be true, because you wanted to believe in them in the first place. They fed on your wishful thinking, and now you are about to broadcast and make it go viral on the internet. As I'm sure many of you are aware, fake news spread via social media has become the latest bane of our society. We live in an information society, having come a long way from being just an industrial society or an agricultural society. Ours is an economy based on information economy, if you will. So when public information is polluted by falsehoods or misinformation, when we cannot tell real news from fake news, our entire society is undermined, threatening our democratic process and economy, indeed our way of life. We live in extraordinary times where information is under attack, where we have concepts like post-truth. The scientific way of knowing is under attack, with fundamental doubts being raised about such known facts as climate change and global warming. In fact, knowledge itself is under attack. What can we do about it? How can you help? By obtaining a graduate degree, you have become or are in the process of becoming a knowledge worker. A knowledge worker is often defined as a person who thinks for a living. So my first message to you today is to vigorously pursue what you've been trained so well to do at Penn State, and that is think. When I say think, I mean think for yourself. Think independently instead of being swayed by others. You see, we live in an increasingly networked world where the self is defined in terms of one's networks rather than one's individual characteristics. We are a bandwagon nation, as I like to say sometimes, increasingly prone to follow the thoughts and recommendations of others in place of our own thinking and self-analysis. We tend to follow the bandwagon on many, if not most, things these days, from whom we vote to what camera we buy online. This is why polls during elections and ratings of products are such major parts of our lives. Which restaurants we go to, which movies we watch, which books we choose to read, even which scholarly article we cite. We have increasingly come to rely on others, not just for information, as in the case of fake news, but to make up our mind about what to buy, what to consume, even what to think or how to think about certain issues. By constantly following others, I fear that our own individualism is increasingly taking a back seat. My plea to you today is to not let this happen. Be more agentic. Be yourself, not member of a herd. Pursue your passion with an inner drive, not because others may endorse it. When I was a student back in India, I was majoring in engineering, but I was somehow drawn to media and journalism. So I started writing articles for local newspapers. I had a dual life for a while, engineering student by day and journalist by night. Classes would begin very early in the morning, and we were done by about 1:30 in the afternoon. And then I would walk into the newsroom at 2 p.m. That's when the assignment editor handed out stories, and I would go out and report and write stories for the rest of the day, sometimes up until 11 p.m., the deadline for the paper to be put to bed. During the course of my engineering degree, I assembled a fat dossier of work, in journalism, that is. And in case you're wondering, I did graduate on time, but unlike my classmates, I had a very real option of choosing between two diametrically opposite career paths of engineering, of becoming an engineer, or becoming a journalist. Of course, the correct option in those days, given the social climate back in India and in my own family and social circles, would be to become an engineer. I got job offers in both sectors, but decided to exercise my agency and did not take up either of the offers, but decided to pursue graduate studies instead, this time in journalism and communication with an emphasis in psychology, and went on to become a professor. The nice thing about having such an eclectic background is that it can help you look at the world differently. In case you haven't heard, interdisciplinary is the name of the game these days. Old academic silos are breaking down across universities as demands from industry and even grant agencies persuade us to think across traditional disciplines so that we can come up with new creative solutions. This is true even in industry and public life. Of course, over there, they don't call it interdisciplinary. The word they use is disruptive. Disruption is key in Silicon Valley and is the new mantra in politics, as we saw in the recent elections. Those who are successful are those who are unafraid to go beyond traditional boundaries and innovate by creating new synergies. So pursue your passion, all your passions, however dissimilar they may be from each other. With some luck, they may come together to provide new insights. In my own case, I'm happy to report that I regularly draw upon both my engineering and journalism backgrounds. Today, I'm a scholar who studies the psychology of communication technology, probing how online users respond to technological features when they consume news and other media content, about how technology shapes the way we think and interact. Last year, I edited the first ever handbook of the psychology of communication technology with 25 chapters from scholars working in this area. In effect, the handbook created a new subfield at the intersection of several older ones like journalism, engineering, and psychology. Even when passions don't come together like this, pursuing a diverse set of interests can be healthy, both intellectually and emotionally. It can provide work-life balance. In my own life, I've had a deep interest in jazz music, even though I do not play an instrument. As a reporter, I used to grab every opportunity to interview jazz musicians, met some real greats that way, Dizzy Gillespie and Wynton Marsalis, among others. These days, I pursue my interest in jazz by serving as a DJ for our student radio station, WKPS, where for the last 10 years or so, I've been curating all the new and old jazz that we play on the station. I promote jazz musicians and jazz shows, provide entertainment to jazz lovers in the community, and in general, proselytize for jazz to an undergrad student community that is at best indifferent to this genre of music. What I've learned over the years is that when I exercise my agency, I am not only pursuing my own passion, but also building community around it, whether it is a community of scholars interested in the psychology of communication technology or a community of jazz lovers in my local city. So my last piece of advice for you today is to use your agency to build community, to have a public presence, if only in a small way. My contribution as a jazz DJ is but a very small attempt to preserve an endangered art form, but it is my way of demonstrating that a private citizen can aspire for a public good. So to recap, remember I'm a professor, think for yourself without succumbing to the bandwagon effect, be agentic, be disruptive as you innovate, pursue your passions, all your passions, build community, and try to contribute to public good. Of course, you will probably not remember any of this 5 years from now. They say that students and parents never recall what the commencement speaker said during their graduation. Chances are 5 years from now, the two things that you will remember from the speech are that I said Penn State will be going to the college playoffs and that you'll be receiving a check for $10,000 in the mail. The only two false things I said today. Who knows? They may turn out to be not to be false after all. With the way our football team is playing, Penn State will be in the playoffs in the near future. And with some luck, all you graduating students will be able to pay back your parents for your education many times over with your many successes in the years to come. Thank you, and once again, congratulations to you all.